Okay, I'm Ballou, as introduced, Legislative Counsel of the House. And I am here today to share a little bit about our comparative print suite of tools. This was developed in the last 5 or 6 years or so. And we were presented a few years back with a specific problem that members and staff were in need of being able to quickly identify changes between versions of a draft, a bill-to-bill comparison, but in a way that was smart and in the XML world. And then two, a challenge in quickly determining how a bill proposed to change current law. So the political catalyst for this change was a change in the House rules that required that we provide these documents as the bill was moving from our Rules Committee onto the floor. So the technical challenge that we saw was that ultimately we needed a house-wide product that could be used on demand so that members and staff would be able to make these kinds of comparisons when they wanted to. So early on, we used some internal tools that use a little bit older technology, primarily pattern matching, to develop enough of a tool that we could manually work and provide to the Rules Committee in order to meet the initial deadline. From there, we then began designing the current tool itself. We had some resources on hand in that we already had our legislative data in a form of XML. We had 3 forms that we were beginning or that we needed to move into a common form, the US version of a common Nintoso. And so that became the very first part of the project. We also had some older tools, so we had an idea of how they worked and what they showed, and that guided us into what we wanted to be able to show as well. We also had in the office the subject matter experts on legislative drafting, and we also had access to technology experts and process flow experts who could also help us as we went through this design process. And finally, we had a really good contractor with a deep expertise in XML, and we were able to leverage that. The method that we used was Agile, and that was both working with our contractor and with our own subject matter experts. We also used a user design team to really hone in and make the interface as user-friendly as possible, because we wanted it to be available throughout the House with a wide range of expertise in the legislative process, from the expert all the way down to a very new staff person. We worked in short sprints and we adjusted as we needed to. In addition, we regularly reported to and sought guidance from the project owners and the project sponsors to make sure that they were on board with where we were going and to see what kind of guidance they might have. Finally, as we were able to, we used a small user groups to test, suggest improvements, and then to help us expand the use of the software. What we accomplished was we created one database that contained most of federal law, and what we were dealing with was more than 200 years of federal law located in a variety of locations and in a variety of database forms. We developed, and really it was our contractor who developed a couple of natural languages and used a natural language processor so that we could use determinative AI that worked from known data, the bill, the law, and then provided the output that we were looking for. And so we were able to do a document-to-document comparison that identified the differences, and especially if a small provision like an introduced bill was added to a large omnibus bill and might be 1,000 pages somewhere in that bill, the tool was able to find it and then show the differences and changes that had been made from that original small bill. A tool was able to recognize amendment instructions in the document to law comparison, to interpret those instructions, to find the location of where to make the changes, to retrieve the specific provisions of law that we were looking for, and then to execute the changes and produce for us the desired output. So an example of what that looks like with the document-to-document comparison, here I'm comparing an introduced bill with one that passed the House, and this is one page of the kinds of changes that were made as the bill went through the process. The material in green, and that's underlined, is new and was added kind of before the bill actually passed the House. The material in pink was what was struck out. But this is now the important thing that I wanted you to see in the document-to-document comparison. This first one, the green is new. The pink is what was struck, and it's example of how a bill changed when we moved from an introduced bill to a bill that passed the House. And then the next one, this would be an example of what the tool shows when I do a document comparison that shows how a bill changes current law. And in this one, which I think is really, really neat, the tool went out and found the current law in the database. It interpreted the instructions, and then it produced the composite document here in interactive view on the screen, which shows the new material inserted into the law, and each amendment that you go through is highlighted. So the one I'm currently on shows a new subparagraph D here. The ones above it where you can see some struck through text would be other amendments that were made to the text. And this is really helpful for me, the drafter, so I can read my bill in context, see what the changes are that I drafted. I can do my own quality control, and as I read, see, have I made all the changes that I need to make to effectuate the policy? And then, are there any obvious technical errors I've made? Maybe I added a 2 subparagraph C's or something. So I can easily fix that because I control the document at this point. My clients will use this to understand what their bill does in context. And so we found it to be a very helpful tool. So the next issue that we ran into was, because it lands in the context of our federal law with a complex history, that it takes a while for somebody who comes into the House to understand how to read the legislation and how to understand what was going on. So we were able to require some basic training as to how to use the tool and how to interpret what the tool was actually telling you. We divided the access to the tool into two categories. Everybody got the basic category, so that would allow you to take two public prints and compare them, nothing more. For the advanced category, we required the training. After that, then you were able to run a comparison that would show how a bill changed law. You would also be able to take a draft that our office produced and upload that draft to see how it changed law, or to do the bill-to-bill comparisons with that a draft from us. And that is where I think the real work happens for our clients, because they want to see what we're doing as we work with them to perfect a bill that reflects their policy. We also were able to work with some experts in our staff academy and developed training materials and videos that are on demand, so anybody could take the training when they wanted to. We know that the tool is not perfect, and so one of the problems that we knew that we were going to run into is, what do you do when the tool does not execute all your amendments? And we were really concerned about us in Ledge Council or in the clerk's office being overrun by requests that in effect said, my tool didn't work, what does all this mean? And we knew that we couldn't handle an influx of requests. You know, if 2,000 people were trying to run the tool and, you know, had some questions where we would be able, you know, to show that there's some common reasons why the tool might not work. And so the kinds of things that we wanted to be alert to was, is there a drafting error by me, the drafter? Is there an error in the current law data set? Does the tool itself not work on the particular kind of instruction? Or are you looking at something that has already been executed in the current law? And so we developed this notification system, and we had 10 common automated notifications, a very short description of what that means. And so that greatly reduced the questions that we got from our users as to what was going on. And with that, that's the basic